Petite Poems Autumn by Alexander Posey, illustrated by Paige, Pettibon. I'd like to dedicate this book to my grandma, Rhoda Ducarme Haywood, for encouraging me to be who I am and for letting me roam around in nature and in my imagination. Petite Poems Autumn by Alexander Posey, illustrated by Paige, Pettibon. In the dreamy silence of the afternoon, a cloth of gold is woven over wood and prairie, and the jaybird, newly fallen from the heaven, scatters cordial greetings. And the air is filled with scarlet leaves that, dropping, rise again as ever with a useless sigh for rest. And it is autumn. Autumn by Alexander Posey. In the dreamy silence of the afternoon, a cloth of gold is woven over wood and prairie, and the jaybird, newly fallen from the heaven, scatters cordial greetings, and the air is filled with scarlet leaves that, dropping, rise again as ever with a useless sigh for rest. And it is autumn. About the poem, autumn depicts a dreamy fall day full of jaybird songs and scarlet leaves dancing through the air. In this poem, Alexander Posey celebrates the changing of the seasons as the golden sun sets on summer and the world prepares for a time of rest. About the poet, Alexander Posey was a Muskogee poet, journalist, humorist, and editor. In 1901, he founded the first Indigenous daily newspaper, which gained him national recognition. Alexander lived in an incredibly turbulent time for the Muskogee Nation, and he used his writing to not only criticize the American government's treatment of Indigenous peoples, but also to advocate for a majority Indigenous state. He was a firm believer that Indigenous nations should have the right to govern themselves. His poetry celebrated the history of Indigenous peoples and the beautiful landscapes of his home in modern-day Oklahoma, where the Muskogee Nation was forced to relocate by the United States government. To learn more about him, you can visit the website listed here. And if I mispronounced any words, that's on me. There's a photograph here of Alexander Posey, and he lived from 1873 to 1908. It's here as a courtesy from the Oklahoma Historical Society Research Division. Now, here's a note from our illustrator. For this beautiful poem, I wanted to highlight our connection with the feeling of transitioning. At the beginning of the book, we sense the end of summer, and by the end, we are fully immersed in fall. My goal was to welcome the gifts nature has to offer us by illuminating how we can use our five senses to take in our surroundings. The smell of harvested sweetgrass, the touch of wind blowing our hair, the sound of birds, the sight of fire-colored leaves, and the taste of a nutty acorn. I hope readers and listeners feel cozy with the crisp air of autumn. Let the protagonist guide you as you take the time to appreciate the precious softness of the season. The feeling of autumn. Autumn is all about the beginning of fall. What do you notice about this time of year? What colors are the changing leaves? What flavors does fall bring? A crisp apple, a ripe pumpkin, or something else? Use your five senses to see, hear, touch, taste, and smell what autumn is like where you live. Write a poem or draw a picture about what autumn feels like to you. Thank you for listening.